Hey, thanks for tuning in today. We're going to bring you a podcast and conversation really around buying a home. Our overall goal is to provide you more information that's going to help you make the right decision that's best for you and your family. I'm John Nichols with Coldwell Banker Realty.
And I'm Marissa Wilson of Spire Financial.
And again, we would like to touch on a few things with you guys. I can be reached on Instagram and YouTube at john.nichols, II Real Estate.
And I can be reached on Instagram at Lilo'sLoan01.
All right, so we'll kind of get started with some Q&A and see, what we develop. Basically, we're going to be sharing what we are currently seeing in the market. We've had a couple of shifts. Definitely more than one since the COVID period on both the buying and selling side of the home as well as the lending side, and answer a few questions and go from there.
So the question I have is, a lot of people in the last market were waiting to buy because they wanted to see purchase prices come down a little bit. I think now we're in a market where we're kind of seeing purchase prices stay a little bit more steady, maybe a little bit lower. Be able to get concessions, but what do you think the effects of waiting actually is?
So the cost of waiting it can be seen in the data, right? It's not anything that people make up, like it's a real tangible thing that's there. And essentially, if we go back to 2021, when rates were as low as 3% ballparkish?
Two at times, but yeah, about 3.
Yes, people were overpaying for homes, right? $60,000, $100,000, and at that time, there's a group of people waiting, basically saying that it's too competitive. I want to wait for the competition to basically slow down, go away. Well, the challenge is when you think about overpaying at that time, it seemed absurd, $60,000 to $100,000 over asking. Well, the reality of it is a majority of that over asking was cash. So it wasn't calculated into your rate. And to me, the people who purchased at the time were really buying to lock in that rate, right? So they, although paid more than asking, are still paying less than the people who are buying today at the advertised market rate, right? Even if the home of the prices dropped, let's call it $20,000, the people who waited to buy till now are paying more monthly than those individuals. So to me, that's like I said, that's the tangible aspect of waiting to buy and waiting for competition to go away. The market has kind of put us in a situation now where the prices have held pretty steady, but the rates have come up.
Right.
And that's where you see the individuals who waited that duration or waited out the competition to buy is kind of looking at the higher mortgage.
Okay, so people right now who are waiting for rates to drop, what do you think?
Waiting for rates to drop, there's a couple of different ways we can handle it. I believe that if you buy now versus waiting, it's a win-win situation. And you may say, well, John, that doesn't make sense. You just said the people that are purchasing now are paying more than the people who purchased in 2022, 2021. Well, we have to be realistic and ask ourselves, when do we believe the rates will ever drop back to that number?
Right.
Which that was a historic low, and that was the first time it's ever happened, right? So I'm betting that it won't happen again when I make this statement. So the win-win situation comes in a situation where the rates are roughly back in the 7s today, right? So if you buy a home today based on affordability, don't stretch yourself, don't buy over budget, truly based on affordability. If today's as low as the rates will ever go, then you win, right? Because now you're talking about 8%, 9%, 10%. If the rates do drop and they do go back to an historical low, you are now in your home and you can refinance to capture that lower rate, right? So to me, that's a safer gamble than waiting to see what happens. In the event you wait too long and the rates do drop, let's say they drop to 5.5%. How many clients do you have that's saying, oh, I'm going to wait for rates to get lower, that is going to come back running to the market?
I've already had a few. And the other piece that I think about is how much equity was missed in that time. You waited for rates to drop for 2 years, and now you're out. Say we had a really good fluctuation, $100,000. I know the people that were waiting for prices to steady. It is a good opportunity because we are getting a lot of first-time home buyers in who aren't able to overbid. But they waited, and now they missed out on all of the equity that everybody else has. My sister bought 3 years ago, and she's sitting on, I think, $80,000 of equity right now that she would have otherwise not had. Today, she would have been starting at ground zero with no money from equity.
And I think you touch on a good point for first-time buyers. So, like from your perspective, what are some challenges you see from first-time buyers, or like the most common question?
So, I mean, I would say the biggest one, and it depends on what client it is. Some clients come and have tons of money off bat, but other clients, we're using down payment assistance. We don't have a ton of money for an appraisal gap. So a lot of what I see is that we can't compete in houses that we have 9 offers and somebody's willing to bid $20,000 over and not do an appraisal or do an appraisal gap and all of these things. So that's the big challenge there, is not having the liquidity to compete the way other people can. So, I mean, this market, especially for first-time homebuyers, this is my favorite market. The last market in COVID, when everybody's overbidding and interest rates are really low, yeah, that's helpful for affordability, but to actually get your foot in the door, I love this market.
Yeah. So, first-time buyers, I guess, what's the one thing that prevents them from buying? Like, what causes them to want to wait versus jumping in this current market?
I would say a lack of education a lot of the time. Some people are actually really ready when they're not. It's typically credit or a lack of income or savings. But the biggest one truly is a lack of education. Hey, I thought I needed 20% down. I thought I needed a 700 credit score. I thought I needed all of these things that you don't need. We have down payment assistance programs. FHA, you're only required to bring 3.5, conventional as first-time homebuyer, 3%. So tons of options. We have down payment assistance for both. And really it's just talking to the right people and making sure that you get that right education so you can either work towards being able to buy or at least have the education to know that you can.
Gotcha.
In this market, what strategies do you use to make sure that the property that you list sells, and the timing on the market, how does that factor in?
So when it comes to listing a home, to me, it's all about marketing, right? So the goal is to get as many eyeballs as possible. So I truly believe that when you're marketing, you're doing professional pictures, we're doing staging if necessary. The home has to pass what I call the eyeball test. So when I talk to a lot of my clients, I would often send them to a model home in the area. Go walk the model home and then come back and make your home look like the model home. And when I'm saying that, I'm not saying like paint everything and the cabinets, and not looking at it from that perspective, but looking at it from like a clutter perspective. How clean things are, how bright things are. One of my tips, I probably shouldn't give this away, but I will go in and change all of the light bulbs in the home.
Okay.
So when people walk in, no matter what time of day it is, the house is bright and airy, right? So some of that comes into play. The marketing aspect, luckily I work with Coldwell Banker that has a reach. So when I list a home and position it within our company, it's going globally because we don't know where the buyer is going to come from. The buyer could come from Europe, they could come from California, they could come from Florida, right? So the more eyeballs I can get, the better off we're going to be with that listing. Social media, YouTube, Google, I mean, the list goes on. So that's one thing I like to focus on to ensure that part of the strategy is to get the home out there and get it so quickly. Over the last 2 years, even including the current environment with higher rates, all of my homes have sold for over asking.
Okay, that's nice.
Right, and that would mean they're also selling relatively quickly compared to others.
So the houses that are sitting in this market, what do you think is happening? What strategy are they using that's not working?
In this current market, I think the strategy is you have to look at it from a buyer's perspective. And unfortunately, if you went to market, say, January, February, or even December, and it was a higher rate market and your price was too high, your home sat. And unfortunately, for a handful of those people, the home is still sitting if they haven't made any adjustments. So you definitely want to ask the questions of what can we do differently in this market to get the home sold? And it's not always a price drop, you know. So just figuring that out with your agent. For me, I would have come to the market at the correct price point, right? The market is going to tell us how much the home is worth. And the price is a strategy. And what I mean by that is if I come to list your home and we list it for 99 cents, do you really think a home in Denver is going to sell for 99 cents, right? Within 24 hours, we'll probably have 100 plus offers that drives us back up to the price that the seller expects.
Okay. So the strategy would be listing a little bit below to get that interest.
Yep, let's get the eyeballs, right? More people are going to see it at a lower price point is the reality.
How do you guide first-time home buyers into home ownership?
First-time home buyers is a unique situation, right? Because I feel like growing up, we all want the biggest house, the forever home, right? Unfortunately, that's not reality. And my message to first-time home buyers is take the steps. And by that, I mean, start on affordability and where you are. If it's a one-bedroom condo, start there, because once you obtain home ownership, from my perspective, and you know about the rates and equity and stuff like that, but from my perspective, you're paying yourself. It's like a forced savings account, right? So you're paying your mortgage, which pays it down, but you're also gaining equity, which increases the value. So you're really saving on two ends, right? So if a first-time home buyer were to come to me and say, I really want a 4 or 5 bedroom house, I can't afford it, so I'm going to wait. I would like to have the conversation with them about, well, maybe we need to look at a 1 or 2 bedroom, because you waiting, can you save enough money, say for the down payment, to outpace inflation? Right? So if homes are increasing 5 and 6% a year, on top of what you're doing, on top of paying rent, on top of all your other expenses, you still in reality would have to save 7 to 10% essentially to keep up with that ladder. So first time home buyers, we go around, kind of have that conversation, but at the end of the day, make the leap based on affordability and make the investment into yourself, pay yourself.
Nice, I like it. So essentially you'd be using the house as a savings account almost.
It's a forced savings account. There's no way around. If you're paying rent, you're not getting that money back.
Okay.
If you buy, at least when you sell, there's a percentage that's coming back to you that you can use on the next home.
Alrighty, I like that strategy.
So as we are talking about first-time buyers buying and then overcoming, what are your thoughts when we encounter like the buyer that's afraid about their credit, or not taking the steps to buy because they don't want to have the conversation around the credit expectation?
So first things first, I'd say lenders are super non-judgmental. We're looking at the numbers, just trying to make sure that it makes sense. You don't have to come to me ready. You don't have to come with an 800 credit score. You can come with any credit score and I'll help guide you. So there's numerous clients that I've helped do rescores to get into house. There's clients that I've helped guide them on what they need to pay down or pay off in order to qualify, and eventually they did buy. And then the other factor in that too is, like I said before, people don't realize that they can qualify. So they come with a 620 and they're like, I know that's too low to buy. And I'm like, no, that's fine. You do have a credit score that, as long as underwriting accepts it, we can qualify you for the mortgage. FHA goes as low as 580. So as long as we can get an approval with your situation, we can help guide you. And if you're not exactly there yet, we have the tools to make sure that you eventually do. So I think people think that they have to talk to me when they're ready to buy, when really the second the thought pops in your head, hey, I think I want to buy down the road, you should be getting with your lender and seeing what steps you need to take, because then you have an actual guided plan that's going to get you into a home. So
basically you're saying like it's always the right time to have the conversation.
Correct.
And it's better to have it early than to wait it out, essentially.
Exactly, because number one, again, you don't know if you can buy, and then number two, say you worked on it by yourself for a year, but you had no idea what you were doing. So you do all of these crazy things, you open 20 credit cards, you do whatever you think makes sense and will get you into a house, and then you actually shot yourself in the foot. Whereas if you would have talked to me a year ago and I said, hey, this is a step-by-step of what we need to do, so in the next year you can buy, there's less of a chance that there's going to be something that pops up down the road.
So if I'm a first-time home buyer and I come to you with questions, like, what is the obligation? Are you going to like try to force me to buy as soon as possible? Like, am I locked in with you the rest of my life? What does that look like? Like, those are some fear factors for me as a first-time buyer, is making a decision that I'm not happy with 2 years from now.
Right. So I always tell clients, I'm on your time. You're not on mine. You're my client. If you want to buy in a year, I respect that. If you don't want to buy at all at the end of the day, I respect that. I'm here to work for you. So you're coming to me and saying, this is what I need, this is what I want, and we're working with that. Once you do a loan application, there's no commitment. The only day that you're truly committed to the loan is the day that you go to closing and you say, I'm signing off, and are ready to move into that home. So, I mean, I think people are scared of the loan application. There's no cost to it. There's no commitment to it. It's just really saying, hey, this is my profile. This is what I want to work with. And can you give me guidance? Can you give me this? That's what the loan application is. It's just me seeing the financial picture to let you know where you are.
Good. So while we're on the subject of first-time buyers, credit, I guess the next organic topic would be rates. So what's going on with rates? What are you seeing strategy-wise? You know, the market's out there and it's high. We understand that, but how do you kind of guide and navigate?
So I think everybody's having predictions on when they'll drop. Everybody is wrong. All economists are looking at all the data and they're like, hey, we're going to get a rate cut now and then, and we're going to have 3 this year, and everybody keeps getting wrong. So truly, we don't know exactly when rates are going to actually drop. So I think if you're interested in buying a house, you have to start looking at strategies. So we do have a lot of different strategies, collaborating with the sellers to make sure that we have some way to get lower interest rates. Par interest rate, meaning that you don't pay anything for it, is a little bit higher, but then we start looking at strategies to bring it down. So a VA client, they're well in the 5s right now because of the strategy we use to make sure that we get them a lower interest rate. So that's always there. I like it because now we have somebody who didn't have to overbid, and then we also have a reasonable interest rate. I personally also don't think interest rates will ever go to the 2.3s again. So to get in the 5s kind of structures it to the point where it's like, do you really need to refinance at any point? And you're getting affordability, you're getting a good purchase price. It's just overall a good picture. So just making sure that you're talking to the right people with the good strategies, programs, and all of that good stuff is going to save a lot of money and kind of combat the high interest rates.
So when we're looking at rates, what percentage of your clients would you say have closed with a rate higher than 6.5%?
Depends on the time frame, and it also depends on the program. So I would say it's probably a 50-50 shot because I do have a lot of first-time home buyers. Down payment assistance is one of those programs where their rate is their rate. But the good part about that program is you're saving your reserves. So say you combine something that the seller gave you with that down payment assistance, you're keeping all of your cash reserves to yourself. So although the interest rate's a little bit higher, you're still having affordability in the fact that you have the money to cover it until we are able to refinance. However, the clients that aren't using down payment assistance, I would say a lot of them are probably below 6.5. So
then if we shift it to 7%, how does that 50-50 adjust?
Oh, that's probably like 80%, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially a majority of your clientele are not paying the advertised interest rate that we're seeing, I guess marketed or more general rate that we're seeing.
That or the thing that they're winning is getting their closing costs paid for. So it's a mix of those two that I like in this market, either getting the seller concessions or whatever they give you to make the rate lower or making sure, again, that you get to keep your cash reserves because we have so much room for negotiation right now in a lot of the properties still. So in some sense, they're getting something that really discounts what they would be paying.
Cool. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're here to help, right? We want you to have the right information to make the best decision. I think for both of us, there's no obligation. Like, don't feel bad or like you're wasting time when you reach out, right? Like, reach out, ask the questions, and let's see where it happens or where it goes, right? Because we don't know until
Right.
we ask the question at the end of the day.
Yep. And the last piece I'll touch on that too, that's a huge myth. You don't have to pay either of us like up front. If you call us, we're not like, hey, this is our hourly rate. Make sure that you send a cash app at the end of the call. So yeah, that's how I work on my side. There's no financial obligation when you first speak to me either. So
Great, great. So again, we're here to help. We're open. We're friendly. We're not going to bite. We're not forcing scenarios. If if things don't work out, they don't work out. But
right.
if you made it to the end of this video, again, John Nichols with Coldwell Banker Realty. I can be reached directly via phone or text message at 720-877-1940. You can find me on Facebook under John Nichols II, Instagram, john.nichols.realestate, Google, John Nichols II Real Estate. I mean, it's all there and it's easy access.
And you can reach me at Instagram at Lilos1101.